Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. Many of you probably know that there is some limited customization available in Lightroom Classic. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I have my Lightroom Classic customized to best suit my needs. Some of the things I'm going to show you probably already know, but hopefully one or two of the things will be totally new to you. This first thing though, I think you probably already know. It's called solo mode. Right now, you'll notice I'm in the develop module of Lightroom. If I open, say, the basic tab, obviously the basic tab opens. If I go down and open the tone curve, you'll notice that the basic tab closed and the tone curve opened. If I open up detail, tone curve closed and detail opened. This is called solo mode, and by default, Lightroom Classic will not do this. By default, when you open a tab in Lightroom, then open a second tab, then open a third tab, then open a fourth tab, all of the tabs will remain open. This could be problematic if you're working with a smaller display, like a laptop or a MacBook or something like that. You'll have to do a lot of scrolling. So you may prefer to set up the right-hand panel of the develop module in solo mode. To do that, just right-click on any of the tabs. A little menu appears. Make sure solo mode has a check. I specifically said the right panel of the develop module because solo mode is specific to the panel. You could have solo mode set up on the right-hand panel of the develop module, but off on the right-hand panel of the library module, and have it off on all the left-hand panels or off on some and on others. You have to manually go through each panel and determine whether or not you want that panel to be in solo mode. Personally, I like both panels of the develop module, left and right, to be in solo mode, so I'll have check marks there. I like both panels of the library module to be in solo mode. So I have solo mode set up on both those panels. But then let's say I go over to the print module. I do not like the right-hand panel of the print module to be in solo mode. I like that to be open because I'm often jumping around quite a bit here. So for the print module, I don't use solo mode on any of the panels, I don't think. No, the left panel either. So you could have it specific to the panel that you want it on or off for that matter. That's solo mode. And I should bring up, there is solo mode too for the import dialog box. So if I bring up the import dialog, you'll notice on the right-hand panel, if I right-click, I have solo mode turned on. I specifically have it turned on there because it forces me to go through each of the tabs when I import images. There have been times in the past where I set up a specific import to make second copies or import collections or to build smart previews. And it remembers this info. And then later on, I was importing images again, and I didn't need to make a second copy, or I didn't need to build smart previews. And what would happen, it did it, and it slowed down the import process, and I didn't need to do it. So this kind of forces me to go through each of these panels to make sure that I have things set up specifically the way I want them set up for that specific import. This kind of segues into the second setting or second thing I like to have customized in Lightroom Classic. Specifically, I use a metadata preset. During the Apply During Import or on this Apply During Import tab in the import dialog, you'll notice it says metadata and there's something here called Import Preset. I created that. Let me show it to you. I'm going to click here and I'm going to go down to Edit Presets and I'm going to go to my Import Preset. And if I scroll down, you can see that IPTC copyright info. I have this listed here. I typed this in. My name, the image is copyrighted, all rights are reserved. Copyright info URL. I used to actually have a page on my website that said that my images are mine, don't touch them. But if you want to license them, contact me at this email address. I since moved my website and that page didn't come with it, so I don't have that there anymore. I have my name and address here, and I have my website there. That's all I have there. That's my entire import preset, and I called it import preset. So you could create your own. What you need to do is open up the import dialog box, go to this metadata tab, click on new, then go through here and fill in whatever you want filled in. Right? Whatever you want, go through here and fill in whatever you want filled in. Most often it's going to be the IPTC copyright and IPTC creator info. That's what you're going to fill in. Give it a name and then click create. And then when you import images, Just make sure that in the metadata that you have that import preset set there. And then during the import process, that info will be added to the metadata automatically. So that's another thing I have customized in my Lightroom that helps me best utilize Lightroom Classic. Very quickly, I'd like to mention that if you go to my website, anthonymorganti.com, you'll find at the top free keyboard shortcuts. They're downloadable PDFs that you could print at home for Lightroom Classic, Photoshop, On1 Photo Raw, and Luminar Neo. Also on my website, I have a complete course on Lightroom Classic, and I have some Lightroom presets and profiles. In the description below this video, I'll have a link to these free keyboard shortcuts, and I'll have a link to my Ultimate Lightroom Classic training course and a discount code. We talked about the import dialog. Let's talk about the export dialog box a bit. I use export presets. You'll notice on the left-hand side, I have an export preset that I called original. That means I'm just sending out the original RAW file or the original file, even if it's a JPEG. It's just as is with no edits done to it. And the reason why I often do that is because I often need to do a video on, let's say, the standalone version of Denoise AI. So I have to send out the unedited RAW file or something like that. So I do it. I have it set up for Instagram. So if I click on this export preset, it will automatically save it to where I want to save it on my desktop. And it's my export-1 is the name. I have the JPEG quality at 100 and the long edge is set to 1080 because for usually horizontal images that I show on Instagram, the long edge should be 1080 pixels. So that's an export preset that I use often. And then for website, when I put images on my website, I like to have the long edge set at 2000 pixels. So I have that set up. So that saves a lot of time. Now, if you want to set up your own export preset, what you need to do is open up this dialog box, go through here and set everything up that needs to be set up for your specific export that you plan to have to do over and over again. So where you want it, if you want it specific areas, if what you want it to do, if you have an image that name already, I have it set to ask what to do. You could rename it, so give it a new name if you want to. The image format, let's say JPEG, 100%, whatever, the color space. So you just set this up exactly as you could see for my website. I have the resize to fit set to long edge of 2000, so on. Include your copyright info, whatever. Have everything set up the way you want it set up here. Then click Add and give it a name. Save it in this folder, User Presets, so they're all right here. And then click Create, and then you'll have that export preset. Now, the cool thing about export presets is you can use more than one at a time. So if I have an image and I want to put it on my website and on Instagram, I would click that box and click that box. So these two are on. And now when I export this single image, it says batch export because it's actually going to export this image twice. It's going to export it at 1080 pixels for Instagram on the long edge and 2000 pixels for my website all at the same time. So you can export one single image more than one way just by using these export presets. So that's a reason why I prefer to use export presets and why I have them set up, at least 3 of them right now set up. May add more though if I find I need to use, or I often am exporting in a specific way, I may add another export preset in the future. Okay, another thing that I have set up, the toolbar in Lightroom. The toolbar is this little piece of real estate that's directly below the image above the film strip. If you don't see your toolbar there, hit the T key on your keyboard. The T key makes the toolbar appear and disappear. Now, specifically, if I'm in the library module of Lightroom, I like to see the star ratings and whether or not I have a flag set on an image. I also could, I don't do it though, but I could set the star rating here. So I could just click right on here. But I actually just use keyboard shortcuts for that. So I just would, if a 5-star image, I would click 5 stars. If I want to add this as a 5-star image, I'd click 5 stars and I'd hit pick. So I don't have these here so that I could manually click on it. I have them there just so I could easily see whether or not an image is flagged and or has a star rating. That's all I have those there for. So I like to have that there. I also, while I'm in the library module, like to have a sort drop down here. Now I could, as I'm implying, you could customize what's showing on this toolbar. If you go to the far right of the toolbar, you'll see there's a little downward facing triangle. Click on that and you could put anything you want there. Well, not anything. Anything that's listed here, you could put there. So if I like color labels too, I could add those. And if I'm rotating images a lot, I could put that there and so on. So you could add or remove whatever you need on the toolbar. Personally, I kind of like the toolbar to be as Spartan as possible. So as, lacking, I don't like a lot of stuff there. So I'll put just what I need. And to tell you the truth, I probably should put the color labels as well. So I'll leave those there. But you go through here and just put what you want on the toolbar. Now it is specific to module. So if I go over to develop module, you can see it's a little different over here. There's really nothing on this toolbar, right? Again, I could go over here and click right here and I could put view modes. Now unfortunately, there's no sort available for the develop module. I probably have sort there if I wanted it, if I needed it. I could put rating maybe or something like that if I wanted. But again, when I'm processing or editing an image, I don't need to know, I could see the flags here. I could see the stars down here in the film strip. But I often have the film strip closed, but still that's beside the point. The point is when I'm editing an image, I like to have all my focus up here. So I have the toolbar, as you can see, pretty blank when I'm working on an image. So set up your toolbar the way you want it set up. And again, it's specific to the module you're in. So the settings change. When you're in the map module, there's different stuff here. You just go to this triangle though, and you can see I have everything set up in the map module. So toolbar, specific settings for that. Now let's jump up to preferences. I have some things set up in preferences and I'll explain why I have them set up the way I have them set up. If you're working on a Mac, preferences is under the Lightroom Classic menu. On a PC, it's under the edit menu. Some versions of Mac OS, it doesn't say preferences. Instead, it just says settings for some reason. But either way, open it up and you'll get this. Let's go to the general tab first. Every now and then, I don't do it a lot, but every now and then I'll shoot JPEG and RAW in camera. And by default in Lightroom, when you import the images, it will really only import the RAW images. It will take all the images, if I remember correctly. Someone in comments correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't done it in a while. By default, I believe it takes the JPEGs off the SD card or memory card and puts them in the folder. It just doesn't import them into Lightroom. To have them imported into Lightroom along with the RAW files, make sure this box is checked right here. So that I make sure that that's checked so that when I'm shooting RAW and JPEG, both get imported into Lightroom at the same time. Another thing that I have unchecked by default is checked is this right here. Select the current previous import collection during import. When you import images, you may have noticed that, let me close this down for a minute, Lightroom will automatically put you in this previous import area up here of the catalog tab. So you're up here. So you're seeing what you imported. And, admittedly, that's great. A lot of people love that. You're going to work on those images. So you want to be there. The problem though, when it's up here, you can't custom sort them. And I, a lot of times, like to move things around in the film strip, like put stuff that I don't want to work on right away to the right and stuff to the left. And you can't do a custom sort, so it kind of annoys me. You have to go to the actual folder to do that. So what I do is in preferences is I uncheck that box. And while the images are importing, I'm usually doing something else. So I go to a different folder and start doing something else. And with that checked, it's automatically going to pop you up in there, and it's just annoying to me. So that is really customized to suit my needs there. Now, another thing I do is I use these camera raw defaults. And you can see I have one set up. I don't own this camera anymore, a Nikon D500, Z6 II, Z7 II, Z9. So I have specific settings that get applied to the image as it's being imported. Some of these are because for some reason, when Lightroom first started supporting the specific camera, it put like a goofy setting in there for like Nikon Z6 II. When I was importing raw images into Lightroom Classic from that camera, it was putting like contrast at like 3 for some reason, and it was putting like weird things. Different sliders would just move slightly for whatever reason. So what you do to create these, and I've done videos on this in the past. I'm going to do an updated video on it in the future because it's kind of difficult to kind of show you in this video. This video would be an hour long. But what you do is you go to the raw file in question for, let's say, a Nikon Z2. I would go to the develop module and I would zero out everything. That's what I like. When I like the raw files come in, I don't like anything set. You notice sometimes when you import raw images, for example, it automatically has sharpening applied to it. It automatically has some manual noise reduction applied to it. I don't like that. So I zero everything out and I create this camera raw default for that camera. So when I import images, all the sliders are zeroed out. And let's say I did do editing on it and I'm in the development module and I click reset, it will reset it to these raw defaults. So it doesn't, for the Nikon Z6 II, it doesn't put like contrast on 3 or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but it drove me crazy. And it did some weird stuff for the Nikon Z7 II as well, if I remember right. So I set up these camera raw defaults specifically because that's just the way I like to do it. So that, again, I'll do a video on that in the very near future to show you how to do that. So if you often import raw files and Lightroom is doing a setting to it automatically that's driving you crazy, you're going to want to set this up, and I'll show you how to do that again in a future video. Let's jump over to catalog settings. Now on a Mac, catalog settings are under the Lightroom Classic menu. On a PC, it's under the edit menu. We go to catalog settings, my backup. I back up once a week, but if, let's say my backup usually I think is on Monday. So when I go to close Lightroom down on a Monday, it will prompt me to back it up. And I do every Monday. But I also will manually back up Lightroom when I import images. So if I did import images on Thursday and I did some work on those images, before I shut down Lightroom, I go to this drop down in the catalog settings and I change it to when Lightroom next exits. So that when I close down Lightroom, it's going to prompt me to back up and it will do the backup. But then it resets this to once a week after that. All right, so that's the way I have it set up, is once a week without fail. And whenever I import images, I'll manually come in and set it up so it's backing up those images after I close down Lightroom for that session. So that's something I recommend you do. Make sure you do backups. I'm just going to bring this up because years ago, I never backed up my catalog because I was manually backing it up. I actually had a disk mirroring application that ran on my computer that automatically backed up the folder that my Lightroom catalog was in. And that turned out to be fine. It did my backup fine. But the problem with that is, and I found out later, is that when you do backup Lightroom, it actually tests the integrity of your Lightroom catalog. And if there is an issue, it will offer you the opportunity to fix the issue. So if you don't do these backups, you'll never know if maybe there's something wrong with your Lightroom catalog. It's still functioning, but there's something wrong with there, and you're going to keep adding images to it. And one of these days, it's going to crash and burn, and you won't be able to fix it. So I strongly recommend that you back up your catalog just for that reason, even if you're manually or have some disk mirroring application or something. Like my catalog's on Dropbox, so it automatically gets backed up to the cloud, but I still do this anyway. So make sure you do that. Also, I should add, if I go over to file handling, this is another setting. My standard preview size, I have it set to the smallest size. You may not want to do this. By default, it will be on auto, and auto will be the size of your display. I have a 5K display, so it's going to automatically, when I create standard previews, create a preview that is 5,120 pixels on the long edge. That's pretty big, and that's great. But the problem with that is when all those thumbnails form and when you're scrolling through your library, it takes a long time for everything to get rendered because it has to read that preview in order to render the smaller things. And it just takes a long time. So I do the smaller one, the smallest one possible. Now, the downside of doing the smallest one possible is that it's not quite as resolute as the better one. So if I really zoom in and I'm looking at pixel levels, it's not going to be quite as resolute, and there might be some JPEG artifacts in the preview and so on. It doesn't bother me, but it may bother you. So you may not want this change, but that's what I do there. And I don't think I have anything. Oh, this is the other thing I do. By default, Lightroom won't have this set. Automatically write changes into XMP. By default, when you do the import preset and you're adding metadata to the image, and or when you're doing edits to an image, by default, Lightroom doesn't touch the raw file, right? It puts all those edits in the catalog. So you have all the edits and all the metadata edits and changes and add-ons in the catalog, and that raw file sitting there in a different location, untouched. The problem with that, as I see it, is if you lose your catalog for any reason whatsoever, you just lost all your edits. Period. There's nothing you can do to get them back. On the other hand, is if you automatically write changes into XMP, what will happen is the edits will get written to the catalog like they always have been, but Lightroom will also create a sidecar file, an XMP file, that's in the same folder as that image. And that XMP file has all those edits in it as well, including the metadata edits. So all that is edit there. So if for some reason you lose your catalog, it's gone forever. There's nothing you could do about it. You have your catalog stored on your laptop, let's say, and you have all your images on external hard drives. Someone stole your laptop, but you still have your hard drives. All you need to do is get a new laptop, load Lightroom on it, and import those images into Lightroom, and all the edits will come with it because you have the XMP file with it. The downside of the XMP file, Lightroom has to take time to write those files. Now, they are super small. They're kilobytes, like a couple, 3 kilobytes in size, I think. So they're really small, but still, it has to write them, and it takes some time to write them. So that is the downside of the XMP. For me, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. Now, if down the line you have several thousand images in your Lightroom library and you check this box, what will happen is Lightroom will create XMP files for all your existing images, but it does it in the background. So you may find your computer, like your hard drive, is being accessed a lot and you're not doing anything. Lightroom is creating those XMP files for all those files in the background. So just be aware of that. So that's catalog settings. And I'd like to finish off with view settings. View settings is up here. See, I have this listed, Nikon D500, and it has exposure info, the lens I used right there. If you hit Command or Control J on your computer, you'll bring up the library view options because I'm in the library module. And you can see that I have this Loop Info 1 and Loop Info 2. Every time you hit the I key on your keyboard, you'll toggle between these two types of info and a clear screen. For example, let me show you. I hit the I key on my keyboard. See, there's nothing there. Hit the I key again, and that's Loop Info 1. Hit the I key again, there's Loop Info 2. So I go back to my view options, and you could see that Loop Info 1, I have the camera model. That's the only thing I changed. By default, you'll have everything else on the second. But I like to have camera model there because I do a lot of videos, and quite often people will message me and they'll ask me what camera I used for that photo, or, so I have it there so people don't have to go through the trouble of asking me. They'll see it right there that I used a Nikon D500. I like the exposure info there because quite often people ask me what my ISO was or what aperture I used, and it's all sitting right there so they could see it. So that's why I have those settings there, mainly for the videos I do. Now, again, for you, you may want something else there. Just go through these drop downs and put whatever you want there. You can see you have a lot to choose from for each of the drop downs. So go through and you could customize that. Now, what showing in the library module could be different than what you have showing in the develop module. So if you go over to the develop module and I hit Command J on my Mac, again, Control J on a PC, I'll bring this up. Notice this says develop view options. These could be totally different than what's showing in the library module. So you could customize this as you see fit. So there's some settings that I have customized in my Lightroom Classic that best suit my needs. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, and this will help you set up your Lightroom Classic to best suit your needs.